You trusted someone completely. You built something with them. A life, a future, a version of yourself that included them at the center. And then they made a choice that changed everything. If you have been through that, or if you are going through it right now, this video is for you. Being betrayed by someone you loved is not something you get over quickly, and anyone who tells you otherwise has never truly been through it. The pain is not just about what happened. It is about what it means. It means the person who knew you best chose to deceive you. It means you have to go back through years of memories and wonder what was real. It means every instinct you trusted in yourself suddenly feels unreliable. You may have spent time asking why. You may have blamed yourself. You may have gone quiet in ways that worried the people around you. All of that is understandable. But here is what most people who have been through this eventually discover, and what this video is about. The rebuilding that happens after betrayal, when it happens quietly and honestly, produces something in a person that almost nothing else can. And that is what we are going to talk about today. And the very first step of that rebuilding is one that most people try to skip entirely. The first thing people who truly rebuild after betrayal learn to do is to let the grief be what it is without trying to manage it too quickly. There is enormous social pressure after a relationship ends, even one that ended through betrayal, to move on, to be strong, to show the world that you are fine. And that pressure can push you into a version of recovery that looks complete on the outside, but is still broken underneath. The people who rebuild most completely are the ones who allowed themselves to feel the full weight of it first, not forever, but fully. They sat with the confusion. They admitted to the people closest to them that it was worse than they were letting on. They did not rush through the grief to prove something to someone who was no longer even watching. That honest grieving, uncomfortable and slow as it is the foundation on which everything else eventually gets built. One of the most damaging things betrayal does is send you searching for a reason. If you can find the reason, if you can identify what was wrong with you, what you missed, what you could have done differently, then you feel like you have some control over it. But that search is almost always a way of punishing yourself for someone else's decision. People who heal from betrayal eventually reach a point where they stop. They stop trying to decode the other person's choices, and they start recognizing something simpler. That what someone does to you says far more about who they are than who you are. You were not betrayed because you were not enough. You were betrayed because the person you trusted made a choice that had nothing to do with your value. Reaching that understanding, not just intellectually but somewhere deeper, is one of the most significant turns in the rebuilding. And this next one surprised most people who went through it, because it felt like a loss at first, before it felt like a return. Something happens in long relationships, even good ones, where you slowly, almost without noticing, start to become a version of yourself that is shaped around the other person. Their preferences quietly become yours. Their world becomes where you spend your time. And over years, the parts of you that existed before can fade into the background without you ever meaning to lose them. When a relationship ends through betrayal, the loss of the future is obvious. What is less talked about is the unexpected rediscovery of the self, the music you stopped listening to because they did not like it, the friendships that faded because they did not fit the shape of the relationship, the parts of your personality that you had quietly shelved. People who rebuild well often describe this period as one of the strangest combinations. Genuine grief alongside genuine rediscovery, both things real and true at the same time. Almost everyone who has been through betrayal describes the same experience at some point. A moment, sometimes many moments, when something felt wrong and they talked themselves out of it. When the small, quiet voice said, "This does not feel right," and they found reasons to silence it. And after everything came apart, that silenced voice became one of the hardest things to reckon with. The rebuilding that comes from this is one of the most lasting. People who genuinely heal after betrayal often become some of the most self-aware and perceptive people in any room. They stopped overriding their instincts. They started taking their own quiet signals seriously. They learned to treat that internal voice not as something to be managed or argued with, but as one of the most reliable things about them. That shift, from silencing yourself to trusting yourself, changes the way you move through every relationship that comes after. And this last one is the one that takes the longest to arrive and means the most when it does. The person who comes out the other side of genuine betrayal and genuine rebuilding is almost always different from the person who went in. Not harder, though they are sometimes described that way. Not colder, though they are sometimes more careful. What they usually are is more certain, more settled in themselves, less willing to shrink to fit someone else's idea of who they should be. What they build afterward, in relationships, in friendships, in the way they carry themselves, tends to be quieter than what came before. Less about performance, less about what looks right from the outside, more about what actually feels solid. They know what they can survive. They know what they will not accept. And they know something about themselves that most people spend their whole lives trying to find. That who they are does not depend on whether someone else chose to stay. There is something worth saying about where this capacity to rebuild quietly actually comes from. For most people, it does not arrive fully formed the moment it is needed. It is rooted in something earlier, in having watched someone in their life face something hard and still get up the next morning. A parent who kept going through something they never fully explained. A grandparent whose life was shaped by losses they carried without ever letting those losses stop them. The resilience that carries someone through betrayal was not created by the betrayal. It was already there, planted by people and experiences long before. The betrayal simply made it visible. And before we finish, the one thing I want you to hold on to from everything in this video. If you are in the middle of this right now, somewhere between the breaking and the rebuilding, hear this clearly. What happened to you was not a reflection of your worth. It was not the verdict on whether you are lovable or enough. It was one person's choice. And one person's choice, however much it hurt, does not get to define you. The rebuilding is slow and does not move in a straight line. There will be days that feel further back than where you started. That is not failure. That is what real recovery looks like. This week, try one small thing. Pick one part of yourself that went quiet, a hobby, a friendship, a way of spending a morning, and give it a little space. You are not starting over. You are coming back to yourself. And there is a real difference between those two things. If someone you know is quietly going through something like this, share this with them today. They may need to hear it more than you know. Take care of yourself, and we will see you next time.